Envision waking before the sun breaks the horizon. The ground beneath you is cold and jagged, composed of uneven stones. A symphony of sounds surrounds you, the creak of metal, the snort of horses, and the coughs of men shrouded in darkness. You have no clear idea where on earth you stand. It might be the frosty banks of the Rhine, bordering the Germanic lands. Maybe it's the dry Syrian desert, where sand infiltrates everything. Perhaps it's the rocky coast of Britain, where rain pours ceaselessly. You are absolutely certain that this routine will repeat tomorrow and the day after that. For 25 years, this is the everyday reality of a typical Roman soldier. He is no general, no senator, just a simple, unremarkable man. Enlisting around 18, he offered his body, his loyalty, and the finest years of his life to the most formidable army the ancient world had ever witnessed. Yet, there is one question most never ask, and its answer completely transforms your understanding of Rome. What became of this man when his 25 years of service concluded? Once you genuinely uncover the answer, it is far more shocking than any depiction in Roman cinema. Moreover, it reveals a profound truth not just about Rome, but about how an entire civilization was constructed, brick by brick, through the efforts of men. Many of us were never truly taught to acknowledge. Before we explore that answer, you need to understand what it meant to live as that man. Not in a superficial sense, but through genuine, concrete, sensory experience. Because, without feeling the true weight of his service, you cannot grasp the impact of what followed. You typically join the army when you are young, not because you crave adventure. You enlist because you are poor, because you come from an interior city of the empire with limited opportunities, or because a family member before you served, leaving you that as the only tradition you knew. The selection process is incredibly strict. Your height is measured, your teeth are inspected, your vision is tested. Roman citizenship is mandatory, at least during the classical era, and that alone reveals much about who was admitted and who was excluded. Once admitted, your former identity disappears. You literally take on a new official name in the military registers. You pledge loyalty to the emperor in a solemn ceremony known as a sacrament, a term Christians would later adopt for a different kind of sacred vow. Then the training commences. Roman training was intensely physical, unmatched by most armies for centuries to come. Modern scholars who have examined Roman military manuals, notably, the treatise by an author called Vagisthus, outlines a regimen of intense physical training paired with relentless psychological discipline. You march, and I mean, you march extensively. A typical day includes marching 30 kilometers while carrying a load. Researchers estimate to be between 30 and 40 kilograms. This load consists of armor, a shield, a spear, construction equipment, and personal provisions. And you do all this without a word of complaint, because complaining comes with severe repercussions. However, what truly characterizes a typical legionary's life is not combat. This might come as a surprise. Roman soldiers devoted the bulk of their time not to fighting, but to constructing roads, bridges, aqueducts, military camps, and fortifications. The Roman army was both the mightiest military force of the ancient world and the greatest civil engineering project humanity had ever witnessed. You served as both soldier and laborer simultaneously, and neither role could be declined. As you construct, march, and sleep in tents or stone barracks in a distant corner of the empire, your personal life is suspended. For much of Roman history, active duty soldiers were legally forbidden from marrying. This regulation endured for centuries. Just imagine that. You spend the prime years of your life in a state of suspended animation. You possess no recognized family, no place to call home, and your only possessions are those that can be carried in a single backpack. Still, generation after generation for centuries, Men kept signing up. What does that reveal about the choices open to a poor individual in antiquity? It speaks louder of the brutality of everyday existence than any commendation the military might receive. Pause now and reconsider that very question. What occurred the moment those 25 years came to a close? How did Rome treat a man who had sacrificed absolutely everything? By now you are 43, perhaps 45 years old. Your knees throb with a pain that no longer registers as pain except when you put them under stress. Yet constantly, even while motionless, you bear scars whose causes have faded from memory. Not all your teeth remain in your mouth. Your physique carries 25 years of cold, burden, marching, and strain, layered like sedimentary rock. Then, on that morning when you receive your missile, the official certificate of honorable discharge from the Roman legions, you clutch that slip of metal or papyrus and suddenly understand you have no clear idea what comes next. That instant was known as the Honesta Missio, the honorable release from service. It signified the conclusion of an agreement whose intensity few contracts across human history could equal. And right at this point, Rome exposes a truth about itself that seldom finds its way into classrooms. The empire did not just swing the gates open and bid farewell. Rome faced a highly pragmatic challenge, one it had been aware of for hundreds of years. A force of soldiers bred for battle, disciplined to their very core, used to command, and left with no occupation, poses a danger. The annals of antiquity abound with tales of discharged soldiers turning to banditry, rebellion, or ending up as mere corpses by the roadside, shattered by neglect. Rome grasped this harsh truth during the Republic's civil wars, as commanders Marius and Sulla discovered that soldiers lacking future opportunities would rally behind any general offering a prize. The empire's evolving solution was a masterstroke, both shrewd and benevolent, lavish yet entirely calculated in its strategy. It rested on two fundamental pillars, each transforming not just the soldier's existence, but the very map of the empire. The first pillar was financial. Upon an honorable discharge, a soldier was granted a sum known as praemia militia, the prize for his military duty. Though the sums fluctuated across centuries and by rank, at their peak they equaled 12 to 40 years of an average worker's unadjusted wages. It was an amount that could transform a life. With that money, a man could purchase a small farm, launch a trade, clear his family's debts, or simply live honorably for years. For those raised in poverty, it marked the first moment they ever grasped genuine wealth. Yet it was the second pillar that forever altered the course of the world. And here the narrative grows truly captivating, a tale no textbook ever tells quite right. Rome bestowed land, not random plots, in some neglected backwater. Instead, it offered land in the empire's strategic zones, frequently along the very frontiers where the soldier had fought. Territories that Rome aimed to colonize, to Romanize in the full meaning of the term, and to weave into the empire's very fabric. Who could be better suited than a man already familiar with that land, speaking a bit of the local tongue, knowing the weather and the soil, and possessing the discipline to start anew? These settlements for veterans were known as coloniae. That name may ring a bell. It is the very origin of our word colony. Whole cities in the present day owe their existence to Roman veterans who were granted land plots and established or enlarged those settlements. Take Cologne, Germany. Its name is a direct corruption of the Latin term. Or Florence, Italy, which began as a colony for veterans of Julius Caesar's campaigns, along with countless other cities. Their presence spans across Spain, North Africa, the Balkans, and the Middle East. Oh, sir, the Middle Eastern region. Reflect on what this truly means in real-world terms. You dedicate a quarter of a century to mastering the construction of roads, bridges, and aqueducts. You now possess land, wealth, and neighbors who are fellow veterans sharing your expertise. Within just a few years, that border, once known as hostile territory, transforms, gaining paved streets, a public forum, thermal baths, and a small temple. The Romanization of the ancient world was not solely achieved through military conquests. It was largely accomplished by retired men who rebuilt their lives in distant lands. There is another surprising detail that shifts everything once you learn it. Recall the rule that banned soldiers from marrying while in service. In reality, it was consistently overlooked. Soldiers maintained partners near the camps. They had children, forming unofficial families that existed in a kind of legal gray area. And upon discharge, one of the initial actions was the official recognition of these relationships. The woman who had waited or lived on the edges of the camp for years suddenly became a lawful wife. The children were automatically granted Roman citizenship. This nearly invisible detail in grand historical narratives explains an enormous number of things. It clarifies how Roman citizenship spread across the empire far more rapidly than any official decree ever could. It explains how local languages, customs, and cultures were gradually absorbed and blended into the Roman way of life. Raised in two worlds, the offspring of these veterans became fluent in both languages, rooted in their soldier father's heritage, while embracing the culture of their local mother. These individuals embodied dual identities, simultaneously Roman and Germanic, Roman and African, Roman and Syrian. The Roman military served as more than a fighting force. It functioned as an engine for creating Romans. Those 25 years of duty formed a metamorphic journey, yielding not merely a fatigued soldier, but a catalyst for cultural diffusion. Rome reintegrated him into society, equipped with resources, expertise, and a family, daughters and descendants, ready to carry forward the mission. Yet here arrives the segment that movies consistently overlook, and it's the most truthful part of this entire narrative. Not all acts that appear benevolent are truly generous. Upon closer examination of the framework Rome established for its veterans, a realization dawns. The boundary separating compensation from tool is far more delicate than initially perceived. The discharge payment praemia militiae was frequently delayed in its arrival. Throughout Roman history, there were extended intervals when the imperial treasury stood depleted. Conflicts incurred greater expenses than foreseen, leading emperors to postpone or outright default on their rightful obligations. Veterans who completed 25 years of service lingered in frontier settlements without land or wages, utterly uncertain of their future. Some perished while waiting, others succumbed to hopelessness. Those consumed by desperation settled for circumstances far beneath what they merited. The guarantee was recorded in writing, yet the actual outcome diverged sharply. Furthermore, when land was allocated, it was frequently of poor quality. At times it was rocky, parched, and arduous to farm. Occasionally, it lay in volatile areas where indigenous tribes still resisted Roman occupation and persistently raided communities. A soldier who endured a quarter-century of military campaigns might easily perish within his first year of civilian existence. Not from combat, but while attempting to cultivate wheat in unfriendly terrain, encircled by inhabitants who regarded him as an intruder. You must keep that picture firmly in your mind. History often romanticizes the Roman veteran as a tough, hardened individual rewarded by the empire. Yet he was also a man with a battered body and frequently lacking close family ties. He was cast onto unfamiliar territory with a pouch of coins and the burden of starting a new life from nothing after turning 40 in a world that offered little else. There was no reliable medicine, no social safety net, and no organized support systems. Except for old legion comrades who shared the same fate, the typical lifespan in the Roman era was quite short. Scholars analyzing burial records and population statistics from that time suggest that very few common men lived to 60 in decent health. Those who made it through their military duty bore permanent injuries, lingering infections, and hearing loss from the relentless clamor of combat and building projects. They also had immune systems that had been challenged across every region of the known world. A proper discharge with privileges was a genuine benefit. Yet the period a man could truly relish that reward was usually much briefer than imperial promises implied. Still, generation after generation, men kept signing up. This isn't a contradiction. Rather, it reveals a harsh truth about the society they inhabited. For a poor, landless individual with no connections or powerful family name, existence beyond the army was frequently more miserable than life within it. The Roman military provided reliable meals, a defined rank structure, a sense of belonging, and an identity. Inside the legion, you understood your place and purpose, but outside, many of these men had no such clarity. This is the nuance that history overlooks when it idealizes the Roman soldier. It wasn't solely about honor, nor was it simply about commendable discipline. It was not merely the magnificent splendor of a growing empire. It was equally about systemic poverty, a scarcity of options, and a mechanism that relied on youthful vitality to sustain itself. And it compensated those young lives just enough to keep drawing in even more fresh recruits, but seldom with the lavishness that imperial propaganda would lead you to think. And here lies a lesson that bridges 2 millennia and speaks directly to you today. Rome endured for centuries. Not through magic, not through racial supremacy, nor through any mystical attribute unique to the Romans and absent in other nations. Rome survived because it constructed systems, flawed systems, frequently unfair, occasionally cruel. Yet these systems succeeded in converting human potential into infrastructure, colonization, and lasting stability. The retired Roman veteran, granted his plot of land, was far more than a man simply getting his due. He was a calculated piece of social engineering, performing precisely as it was intended. Every city he helped erect on a far-flung frontier became another node in the web that held the empire together. Every son born a Roman citizen was a future taxpayer, a future soldier, a future laborer. The system perpetuated itself with a self-sustaining efficiency that no decree could ever achieve alone. So what lesson does this offer us, standing where we are today? It reveals that the gray frameworks of history are seldom constructed by lone heroes or isolated villains. They are assembled by everyday people making constrained decisions within systems they scarcely comprehend. At times, they receive just enough to carry on. At other times, they gain nothing and vanish without a trace. The names of generals are recorded in the books. The names of emperors are stamped on the coins. Yet the pathways, the enduring cities, the remnants of speech, legal systems, and architecture we still embrace in the Western world. Such creations were the work of individuals who were never immortalized in marble, soldiers who trudged 30 kilometers daily for countless years. When fortune smiled, they grew old and passed away in a frontier settlement they had personally constructed. Around them, children conversed in Latin, but with an unmistakable non-native intonation. Whenever you tread upon a cobblestone lane, gaze at a stone arch, or catch a Latin phrase, the root of your daily tongue, reflect on these ordinary men, not the commanders, but the foot soldiers themselves. For a quarter century, he rose before dawn and finally was granted a certificate and a plot of ground, plus the liberty to begin anew with whatever remained. That was the fate of a pair of Roman legionaries, following 25 years of dedicated duty. From now on, your view of Rome will be forever transformed. Should this video have shifted your historical perspective, share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm eager to hear your reaction. Give this video a thumbs up if you discovered something new. It greatly supports our channel's expansion. Hit subscribe to stay tuned for more weekly narratives just like this one, each packed with fresh insights. One more thing. Before you leave, check out the video currently on screen, which dives into the wages of Roman soldiers, plus how they utilized those earnings. Prepare to be amazed all over again.